Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, August 11th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The pick is in. Democratic presidential hopeful and former Vice President Joe Biden has made up his mind for a running mate. And as Whitney Wild reports, there's a California connection.
The ticket for the Democrats will be Biden-Harris. After months of speculation, we've learned today that the presumptive Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, has chosen California Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate. She will be the first Black and South Asian American woman to run on a major political party ticket. In a statement, Biden said, "I've decided that Kamala Harris is the best person to help me take this fight to Donald Trump and Mike Pence, and then to lead this nation in January 2021. Don't forget, Kamala Harris is a former political rival. She has since focused her campaign on her readiness to confront Trump. In this pick, Biden, acknowledging his age, is also seeking to lift up a new generation of Democratic Party leadership. At the White House, I'm Whitney Wild.
The coronavirus is on a downward trend in San Diego County, but unfortunately we hit 2 more milestones. Today, public health officers announced 182 new cases, bringing the total over 33,000. It's the first time since June the daily number of cases have been under 200. Unfortunately, 8 more deaths were also reported, bringing that total over 600. And with 6 more community outbreaks identified, county leaders say they are cracking down on rule breakers. Here's KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento.
County officials say indoor closures at businesses weeks ago have helped reduce the spread of coronavirus, but they're still working on getting all to comply. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher says the county is going after those businesses with the enforcement tools it has.
A site visit to try and gain compliance, a cease and desist order prepared by the county, a public health closure note prepared by the county, or a citation.
But that requires the cooperation of law enforcement in the jurisdiction where a business operates. A Ramona business owner was the first to be charged, and Fletcher says the Boulevard Fitness Gym in University Heights has also reached that point.
They continue to remain open. Today, the San Diego Police Department went out there and cited them.
But the owner of North Park Fitness, who is abiding by the public health orders, told KPBS that his customers are leaving for gyms that are breaking the rules. Fletcher says they're working hard to hire more people and respond.
I'm certainly one that would like us to see much more swift action in terms of our enforcement posture against those egregious violators, because it damages the entire effort of what we're trying to do as a county, but it also really undercuts the incredible work that all of those entities that are in compliance are doing.
The county has to reduce its rate of new coronavirus cases to get off the state's watch list that triggered indoor business closures in the first place. It has to get down to 100 new cases per 100,000 residents. But the county and the state are calculating the case rate differently.
Currently, the case rate is 101.2 based on county calculations and 105.3 based on the state's calculation.
Today, County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten provided a long requested explanation.
We calculate our numbers based on all cases that have been reported through 11:59 the prior day. The state may calculate theirs based on the time that they create this rate. So if any additional cases have been reported to them during the day, they use that information.
She says the county also includes any cases among prisoners while the state does not. But Wooten says even when the state's calculation shows San Diego reaches the threshold, businesses won't be able to open immediately.
The state will need to provide guidance on opening of other sectors, and that authority does not lie or reside with local jurisdictions.
Right now, the pathway to reopen schools is more clear. She says after 3 days of holding at the state's case rate goal, we'll get off the monitoring list. But we have to stay off it for 2 weeks. That applies to schools that serve grades 7 through 12. Elementary schools can seek a waiver to open now. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
The city of San Diego is about to crack down on large gatherings of people at Ocean Beach. OB residents and businesses have been complaining for weeks that people aren't wearing masks and they're not physically distancing. KPBS reporter John Carroll has the angry reaction from one member of the San Diego City Council.
But right now, people who come here with no mask, with no distancing, are being irresponsible, and they could get sick, deathly sick, and die.
As bystanders heckled her, City Council member Jen Campbell did not mince words. Ocean Beach is in her district, so she's been getting an earful from OB residents and businesses about the Wednesday night drum circles. The weekly drum circles have been a fixture of OB for the last couple of years, but now, in the midst of a pandemic, they've turned into possible super spreader events with very little mask wearing and practically no physical distancing. This morning, the city put up an orange plastic fence around the Veterans Park area where the circles take place. But by this afternoon, it had been torn down. Campbell was furious.
So I'm telling everybody who loves to congregate here, behave, or you're going to be in big trouble.
Campbell says if people continue to violate the county's health orders, they should be arrested and charged. But before it comes to that, city officials say they'll try a softer approach.
We're going to stand here for several hours tomorrow and educate people that this is not acceptable.
It's not just the blatant violations of health regulations that have locals here upset. OB's town council president says community members are left with a gross aftermath every week.
Picking up mountains of trash that happens here on Wednesdays and other days.
Winky says a last resort option would be to close the park, but that would deprive the entire community of a beautiful resource, all because some folks refuse to follow the rules. John Carroll, KPBS News.
2 recent reports show that predominantly Black and Latino neighborhoods in San Diego County have been hit with a COVID triple whammy. KPBS reporter Claire Tregeser says they not only have the highest infection rates and are hardest hit by unemployment, but also experience a significant gap in access to COVID-19 testing.
One report shows that among large metro areas nationwide, San Diego has one of the largest gaps in COVID-19 testing access for white and non-white neighborhoods. It found, for example, that testing sites in majority Black areas were estimated to be 28% busier than majority white areas. Another report found the zip codes with both the highest number of COVID cases and the highest unemployment rates are in areas where more Black and Hispanic people live. The 91911 zip code in Chula Vista had the most unemployment and COVID infections, followed by 91932 in Imperial Beach, and then by 91950 in National City.
And I think that's kind of the double whammy of this particular crisis that we're facing right now.
Ray Major is Sandag's chief economist and author of the report.
There's a community that is disproportionately hit, and that is the minority community here in San Diego.
It's a call to action for all of us to do better.
Nancy Maldonado, the CEO of the Chicano Federation, says she is not surprised by the numbers, but called them heartbreaking.
It's there, it's in the data, it's in the numbers, and I think collectively we all need to do better.
The county recently rolled out a program using community health workers known as promotoras to give Latino people a trusted source of information. Community groups are also getting county funding to set up a community resource center. Maldonado says these are all steps in the right direction, but she wishes they had been done earlier.
We need all hands on deck to get these infection rates down. We need all hands on deck to make sure that we bring the death rate down. And we need all hands on deck to make sure that all communities within San Diego County have the resources and the referrals and the help that they need right now.
Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
As studies continue here in the United States, Russia says it has approved the world's first coronavirus vaccine. But as Camila Bernal reports, there are fears that the country may have cut essential corners in its development.
More than 20 million cases of COVID-19 worldwide. The U.S. with the highest numbers, now surpassing 5.1 million. It's why experts across the country and around the globe continue working on a vaccine. Russia now says it has figured it out, calling it Sputnik V.
I know that it works quite effectively. It forms a stable immunity.
But the claim of victory comes amid suggestions that Russia may have cut essential corners in its development by not fully completing traditional clinical trial protocol and not releasing any data.
The point is not to be first with a vaccine. The point is to have a vaccine that is safe and effective.
Meanwhile, Moderna, the first company to begin clinical trials in the U.S., says it continues to move forward with phase 3 of its testing. And health officials say that completing every phase of clinical trial testing will help determine if a vaccine will truly be effective.
Virtually any vaccine can trigger a short-term response, but getting that long-term response, which is what we really need, that is a complete unknown for this Russian vaccine.
Experts say based on the timeline of the trials, Moderna and therefore the U.S. will not have a vaccine ready by Election Day, but could have it ready early next year. Camila Bernal, KPBS News.
And we won't be cheering on the Aztecs this fall. Sports at San Diego State have been postponed due to the pandemic. The Mountain West Conference, which includes SDSU, canceled the 2020 football season, along with soccer, volleyball, and cross country. Student athletes will, however, still be focusing on competing in the spring.
Our goal is that we want to give our student athletes that opportunity to play, and we feel like right now it's just not the right time to try that with all of the different health risks that could potentially be there.
Today, the Big Ten announced all fall seasons will be postponed until possibly the spring, citing potential medical risks. Pac-12 postponed sports until January 1st. And locally, UC San Diego and University of San Diego have also canceled fall sports. A new survey finds Antarctica has lost massive amounts of ice over the past few decades, and the impact is felt in Southern California. More now from KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson.
Satellite data collected over 25 years is giving scientists a picture of how Antarctic ice sheets are changing. Researchers found the ice sheets shrank by 4,000 gigatons since 1994. A gigaton is 1 billion tons. Scripps Institution of Oceanography researcher Helen Fricker says that's due to a warming ocean underneath the ice.
We know roughly which parts of Antarctica are losing the floating ice and exactly when that melt rate was at the highest. And that's important because it means we can input that information into ice ocean models and then ice sheet models, which will then be used to predict future sea level rise. We have a much better understanding of how the ice sheet is changing as a result of data sets like this one.
Ice melting in Antarctica raises global sea levels, increasing the chance of flooding along the California coast. Fricker says understanding what's going on there helps researchers predict the future.
We are losing a lot of ice in the west of Antarctica, in the Amundsen Sea and the Bellingshausen Sea. But what we can see in these data is how that signal is changing. It's not just as constant melt rate that's occurring there. We have a sort of overarching pattern in there, which is being driven by changes in the atmosphere and the ocean.
The new data sets are published in the current edition of the scientific journal Nature Geoscience. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Generally dry weather is in our future. Maybe a couple of sprinkles around on Thursday as we get some high-level moisture from a hurricane in the East Pacific. But that's about it. Otherwise, we're talking about more night and morning clouds, some areas of fog early in the morning right along the coast. Slow warming continues through the middle part of the week here, but the interior section's really getting hot from Friday through the weekend into Monday, the deserts will be baking. Temperatures will be rivaling records on a daily basis. So as the temperatures start to rise here, we do have excessive heat watches out across the deserts right across the southwest. Temperature tonight, 60 in Oceanside, 65 San Diego, some clouds around. Borrego Springs, a warm night, 80 degrees. And there you can see Mount Laguna at 59. How's it look like on Wednesday? Really no big changes. A little more comfortable at the coast as you head into interior sections. Temperatures on the rise. Dry conditions, lots of sunshine. Borrego Springs, hot, 111. Mount Laguna at 82. Campos at 97. Ramona, 96. And El Cajon, 94. And Escondido's up to 90 degrees. Thursday and Friday, look at that. No monsoon flow. So we're hot and dry. The only moisture could be coming up from that hurricane passing well to our south. So a few more clouds in the offing there around Thursday. Temperatures slowly rising. Look at that. We're very warm here by the weekend. And as we take you to the inland sections, it's getting pretty hot. That Friday, close to 100 degrees and hot conditions into the weekend. Mountain areas, we'll be looking at temperatures warming into the mid and upper 80s. And here in the deserts, temperatures rivaling records Friday and Saturday. Looks like we could break the record on Sunday, and it stays hot into Monday. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Census counters began knocking on doors across the country today. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us how community organizations have tried to make their job easier by boosting San Diego's self-response rate despite the pandemic.
Yeah, it really impacts if a hospital gets built or free lunch gets paid.
This is Joanne Field's third go-round with the census after helping the county's efforts in 2000 and 2010. She's an organizer on Asian and Pacific Islander issues and is working with a variety of community groups in San Diego to boost census responses for this year's count. After each decade, she's seen how the census directly translates to vital infrastructure for San Diego's neighborhoods.
In National City, we have a new urgent care at Paradise Valley Hospital. Why? It's because they're serving more people in National City and southeastern San Diego.
She sees this year's count as vital to focusing the government's recovery efforts from the coronavirus pandemic. For example, she says, federal CARES Act funding was tied directly to the previous census.
So again, that's where the census comes into play.
But this has been like no other census in American history. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, efforts by local organizations to go door to door to get people to respond to the census had to be put on hold this spring. Mail delivery has been slowed. And a lot of residents, especially those in poor neighborhoods, have had a lot of other things on their minds. But there have been some things working for the census this year. Like seemingly everything else, the census has gone online. And it's shorter.
We have technology on our side this time around. This is the first time we can complete the census online, and there's only 9 questions.
That means efforts like Count Me 2020, San Diego and Imperial County's official census coalition can track in real time where people are answering the census and which areas need more outreach. For neighborhoods like City Heights, which relies heavily on government support for better education, housing, and healthcare, organizations can pinpoint where to focus their efforts.
We have had to switch our strategy. And so currently right now we're dropping off literature, hoping to, at least in some way, right, reach out to our community to make sure that they're counted.
Brenda Diaz is the Civic Engagement Coordinator at Mid-City Community Advocacy Network. Her organization has been spearheading census efforts in City Heights, where non-English speakers, refugees, and immigrants have been hard hit by both the adverse health impacts and the economic fallout from the pandemic. She explains that makes the census less of a priority, while at the same time, that much more important.
We understood and still understand that the census is very important, but again, it's not a priority in our community. And so I think by first addressing the issues that they're concerned about, and kind of giving them some ease and some sort of relief, then they're able to take in, our messaging, which is well, this is why you should participate in the census.
In addition to reaching people where they are, census organizers have had to get a bit creative. In the past few weeks, they've launched car caravans around neighborhoods in San Diego and Imperial counties, encouraging people to participate in the census. These efforts have been paying off. Right now, San Diego County has surpassed its final 2010 self-response rate, with 69.2% of households in the county responding. But that still means that government workers will have to visit over 382,000 homes. Because of a decision by the Census Bureau last week, they'll have one less month to do that. The count will end September 30th. And neighborhoods like City Heights are still lagging behind. The final push to get an accurate count is where City Heights leaders like Mikhail Hussein are stepping up. He is the head of the United Taxi Workers of San Diego, whose members are from the immigrant communities that are the hardest to count. Over 100 of their drivers are being paid this week to put a large magnet on their taxis promoting the census in several languages.
Our community, as you can see, they are visual community. They want to see things in order to do something.
Hussein believes that messengers from their own communities and not the government will help alleviate any concerns they might have about the information they're sharing.
To see something they can relate. In other words, something they know what that mean. And also there is a cool thing actually the Census 2020 they did is different language explaining about what the Terekopka, the census means is Terekopka. So they're kind of like what's the benefit and why it's a benefit, why you have to do it, what's the requirement, people what they can ask, what they cannot ask.
With the clock ticking, and with even less time than organizers expected, San Diego has under 2 months left to get its census count right. And the next 10 years are riding on it. Maxwell Adler, KPBS News.
The Trump administration may use the coronavirus pandemic to tighten entry at the U.S. border with Mexico. Sources say options being weighed include barring entry to U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents. A draft memo obtained by the New York Times reports any move to block citizens and permanent residents would only apply in the rarest of circumstances and would ensure no constitutional rights are infringed. This move would likely face legal challenges, and the ACLU has called it unconstitutional. The Navy has set an ambitious time frame to look at systemic racism in the service. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh talked to the heads of Task Force 1 Navy.
In the wake of the killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police, the Pentagon announced a series of efforts to look at racial bias. July 1st, the Navy created a 20-member committee headed by Rear Admiral Alvin Halsey. They have held listening sessions around the country.
We're listening to our sailors. They come up with really good ideas, and everything that they feed to us, we're taking it, we're going to put it out there.
The head of the Navy is requiring the group to look at 9 major areas, everything from bias in promotion to disparities in enforcing military justice. Unlike the Defense Department, the Navy also wants the group to examine sexism and discrimination based on religion. All of this for a report that's due by mid-December. Halsey says the Navy isn't trying to do too much at once.
I would argue that when it comes to the sexism and racism and that stuff, it's all about respect. It's all about people seeing human beings for who they are and accepting them.
The Navy has seen commissions looking at racial bias and inclusion dating back to at least Vietnam. Force Master Chief Hubin Phillips says he believes this effort is different.
After the tragedy of the death of George Floyd, I would tell you that a lot of people have been reading and learning and has a thirst for knowledge of what they didn't know. And that's across all races, and I think that is a good thing.
Task Force 1 Navy has had listening sessions in Norfolk and Pierside at other bases around the country. So far, San Diego has not been on the list, but they are expected to be added before the report is finalized. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Bike advocates in San Diego are celebrating a legal victory for a proposal to put new bike lanes on a major street in North Park. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the project could be built very soon.
San Diego is in the midst of replacing a water main underneath 30th Street. When the project is done and the street is repaved, the city plans on removing some of the street parking to create protected bike lanes. Last year, a group called Save 30th Street Parking sued to stop the project. But a judge this week said construction of the bike lanes could go on while the lawsuit continues. Opponents say the loss of parking spots will hurt local businesses. Supporters say the bike lanes will help business by making one of North Park's main commercial streets safer and more comfortable for cyclists. The city says the new bike lanes could be in place as soon as next month. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Judy Woodruff tonight on the NewsHour. Kamala Harris is the pick. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's a recap of today's top stories. While cases in San Diego County are on a downward trend, we also hit 2 milestones today. We topped the 30,000 case mark with another 182 new cases, and 8 more deaths put the total to 602 so far. Predominantly Black and Latino neighborhoods in San Diego County not only have the highest infection and unemployment rates, but also experience a significant gap in access to coronavirus testing. That's according to 2 recent reports. The county recently launched outreach for Latino communities, but advocates say they wish the help had come sooner. And Ocean Beach residents and businesses have been complaining for weeks that people at weekly drum circles are not wearing masks and are not physically distancing. The city put up an orange plastic fence this morning around the Veterans Park area, but by this afternoon, it was torn down. Tomorrow, city and county leaders will educate people about violating health regulations. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation. Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.